Hey, we are going to start using Godot for our C++ maze program. These are the outputs from prior videos. We have a library, some pictures, and a font. We're gonna just create a maze CPP folder to put things in, and then we're gonna make a source folder to put Visual Studio stuff in, and we're going to put a Godot folder to put the Godot stuff in. You want to keep them separate because Godot is going to look into everything in its folder and constantly re-import it, and we don't want to do that. Since this is the first time running Godot in this folder, I'm gonna take a little bit to set some things up. We are going to set our project folder, call it maze CPP, and create it. And then, as you might notice, the icons are tiny. I don't like them that small, so I am going to adjust that. This would normally be saved, but since I'm making sure that everything is fresh on a new install and everything for this video, we are not set up correctly. So in editor settings, high DPI mode, mid DPI. That's the type I prefer. And then we have to close Godot and relaunch it. And voila, we now have larger icons. And you can set any level of icon you want or whatever, not an issue. We're gonna create a node TD and we're gonna call it main. This will be our main scene that runs the whole game. Let's save it, and then let's run the game, and that way we select our scene that gets run when we run the game. And we had a window show up. That's good. Everything seems to be working. Now we are going to bring our assets over. So let's make a folder for them. And then I have the windows open already. So let's go back and we're going to copy over just the PNG files to the assets folder. And there you see they're in there. We're going to grab one of the fonts. You can use more if you want to have different fonts for different things, but we just need one. Any one will work. And then we also want our library. That's the C++ bindings that we built in a whole previous video. So now we have everything we need. Back to Godot, and they're there. So everything's working. Everything's there that should be there, and let's get started. We're going to change, let's set up some layer names in our project. We're going to have a player, we're going to have some walls, and we're going to have an exit. These are in layer names 2D physics in the project settings. And then for display window in project settings, we're going to set it to 1920 by 1080. Just a common resolution, so that's going to be our test target while we're developing, and it looks good. Now let's start adding some stuff. Let's add a node 2D and another node 2D off of main. We're going to call these outer and inner walls, and these are just to hold the walls that we generate or put out or whatever. So they're not the real walls. We're going to create a new scene, and let's use a kinematic body 2D for our player. And let's set his collision stuff now. So he is a player, and he collides with walls and exits, but not players. And then let's add a collision polygon, because we're going to have our stickman, so we need to create our own polygon to match that. And then let's pull in our stickman sprite, add a sprite to it, and drag over from assets our stickman. And then we want him not centered. Now let's go back to the collision polygon, and we're going to create the polygon. Zoom in a bit to make it a little easier, and then create new polygon, and let's start drawing some dots. It doesn't have to be this good at following along the lines and stuff. Obviously, you're going to use real art assets instead of this. I'm just showing the process, and if you mess up where one of these should be a little bit, don't worry. In a second, I'll show how to move them. I'm sure I'll mess up one somewhere. And then we will have our collision shape. This will collide with walls and detect when the player enters the exit tile. So, all right, we're gonna drag these dots around a little bit to fix it up. And there we go, good enough. So let's save this. That is our player scene. And we're going to add a camera to him also, so that the camera will just track the player. And then we're going to set the camera to current, so that it's the one that's actually being used. And then let's also add a texture rect. This is going to just be a black background. And we're going to drag the black over there, and we're going to tile it, and we're going to set the position to minus 960 by minus 540, half of 1920 by 1020, or 1920 by 1080. And then we're going to set the size to 1920 by 1080. And you'll notice we are covering up our sprite. So move the camera above, and that way our sprite still gets shown. This is not usually how you would do a background. I am just trying to show different things that you can do in this tutorial. Feel free to do it a smarter way. And now we're going to instance in the player into the main scene. And we're gonna want that draw order thing again. So let's do player, then inner walls, then outer walls. And let's create another scene. Node, I'm just going to start these with node 2Ds as the base. And this is a wall. Node 2D is just, it's a placeholder. So then I'm going to add a texture to the wall, because our wall needs a texture. And we're going to make it yellow, because why not? And then we are going to add a static body. The static body is the best choice for walls. If you read the documentation, it'll say that. And then collision shape 2D, and we're going to set the static body. This is a wall, not a player, and it collides with just players. Our shape, we're going to make a new rectangle, and in the rectangle, we're going to change it to 64 by 64. That's each direction, so it's going to be 128 by 128, same size as our graphic. And then we're going to set the position positive 64 by 64. And that matches right over top, and then we're going to hide the collision shape. So now we have our wall. Now we are going to make outer walls. Let's instance it in, and then let's duplicate it 4 times. I'm going to name one north wall, west, south, and east. And then let's select all 4 of them and set our position. We're going to set it to -128 by -128. And then for just the north wall, we're going to change the scale along the x-axis to 11. And then the west wall, apparently all of them change. All right, so the north and south wall wanted that scale. The west and east walls, we want, we just want 1 on the x and then 7 scale for the y. And west is at the right place. East. So we need our south and east walls moved. East, we're going to put at 1152x. And south, we want at 640y. And this is a small maze for now. We might change the size of it later, but we want it to be pretty quick to get to the exit and check that everything's working. All right, we're going to make a new scene, and we're going to call our node 2D base of it exit, and this will be our exit tile. We're going to need a texture for the exit, and it's going to be red. And then we need a static body again. And then a collision shape. And we're going to set this to 64 by 64 inside the shape again, the extents. And then we are going to set its position to 64 by 64. And now it overlaps our texture, so we're going to turn off the collision shape. And then we are going to, on the static body, set that this is an exit, and it interacts with players. And there we go. Now we have an exit also. And then let's instance in the exit. And let's set the position of the exit. 1024 by 512. That moved everything. All right, undo and go back, and let's set 1024 by 512. That is where I want. All right. So now we have our guy and exit and walls.